You're at Lake Rant, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Nisio Scene Shill, who says, "For my September rant, I'll go with the release of Zaregoto's third novel just around the corner after over a decade of it sitting at two novels translated. Rant about the history of official light novel translations." Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on a lot of this in my video about just the general history of light novels in America, or light novels and manga have gotten too expensive, or something like that is what the video is called. But light novels coming to America, I've kind of been following them since the start. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, you might have got some light novels that were tied into popular franchises. So, like, I remember when I started seeing stuff like Dot Hack novel tie-ins, Full Metal Alchemist novel tie-ins. I don't remember if Full Metal Panic ever came out in the U.S. I remember seeing Scrapped Princess. Like, and some of these are, novels that were the originals of the series, like, in that case, but, it was because there was an anime series that these things were able to come out stateside. So, initially, everything was going to be tied to an anime in some way. Well, then in the mid 2000s, there was a push to try to bring light novels into America and make it a thing. And, we had stuff like Boogie Pop, which I had read at the time, was a huge fan of, and obviously that is tied into an anime in some way, even though, the anime is like an interquel between the first and second books. But you started getting even more of those anime tie-in books, as well as the occasional original light novel. And I remember buying stuff like Kino's Journey and Go Sick. Go Sick was one of the first ones that had no anime connection that came out here. Calling You, a bunch of shit, because there were basically, I want to say, three publishers who were really like concerning themselves with light novels, maybe four. You had what the fuck were they called at the time? The ones who are now Kodansha Comics, they were called Del Rey. Del Rey was making this big push to try to bring over like the really famous and popular light novel authors such as Nisio Isin. And so, they were releasing the Faust book compilations, Nisio Isin's work, starting with his tie-ins like Death Note and Holic. Well, I think Viz did the Death Note one, but the XXX Holic one, I think Del Rey did, and they also had stuff like Otsuichi and fucking Kohei Kodono stuff was included in. I don't think they released any of his stuff outside of Faust, but they were trying to take these authors who were in this particular style, what I like to call the Faust style of light novels, and bringing those out alongside other shit. And then you had Tokyo Pop trying to do it, but Tokyo Pop never seemed to have any success with the light novels. They had a couple of one-offs. They had some shit that they did the first volume of, like I believe Kino's Journey and Gosick, and then they just never continued them. They Tokyo Pop, it cannibalized itself in the late 2000s, as you can find stories about that elsewhere. But they basically, I mean, when the fucking economy crashed in 2008, all this shit went out the window. It's like any light novels that were kind of coming out, they stopped. The manga industry completely crashed and burned. Seven Seas. That was the other group that was releasing light novels, and they did Boogie Pop, and they had done some other shit. They were releasing Shinigami no Ballad. They were constantly having to push stuff back. Like, for me, following this stuff, I would go to, Seven Seas website every couple of weeks or so, and it would be like, oh, the next volume of Boogie Pop coming out 2 months from now, or like, oh, we're planning to release Shinigami no Ballad this fall, and then it would be fucking 2 seasons later by the time it came out. It just seemed like none of these things were all that successful. Well, funnily enough, the market crashes, all these publishers basically give up, and then the one that brought it all back was Yen Press. And Yen Press was very wise about picking light novels that had, anime adaptations that were very popular in, like, the hardcore anime fandom, and stuff like Haruhi, eventually Sword Art Online, all the shit from Dengeki Bunko, basically. And I think that pretty much revived it. Like, it started with Haruhi, which I think was a fairly successful light novel release. Then you had Spice and Wolf, which I think was also fairly successful. They released, like, all of that. And then, yeah, like, once the Dengeki Bunko stuff started coming out in, like, the 2010s, and you got SAO and all that shit, it just brought it back in a big way. And then I think that now with the fact that light novels are like a well-known thing, particularly all the crazy isekai shit. Like most of the stupid ass fucking long title isekai light novels are coming out stateside. Every time I go to Barnes and Noble, there's a fuckload of isekai light novels everywhere. But stuff outside of that realm, you've got Vertical Comics, who they've always been like about bringing over like artsier shit. They did a lot of Tezuka manga initially. They started doing, Nisio Isin's books, and they brought back Zaregoto, I think, because of the success of Monogatari. Basically, it just kind of seems like all these publishers wised up to the fact that, a lot of these anime adaptations do not tell the complete story of these novels. And so if you pitch it as like, hey, continuing the story where you left off, more people are likely to go and check it out and want to know where these stories where they go. So I think that in a big way has rescued it, and just the name recognition of trying to push Nisio Isin before the Bakemonogatari anime came out was not going to work. Pushing him after Monogatari, much easier, because the anime was such a huge fucking success. So yeah, it basically just comes down to light novel adaptations being more successful, bringing over the light novels that inspired those adaptations, and occasionally bringing over stuff that seems like a sure thing because it's close enough in genre to that other shit, or has catchy titles that are that market themselves, which is how they got popular in Japan in the first place. So yeah, it's nice that it's back, but at the same time, I wish they had. I wish this had all been successful when I was young enough to actually like most of these light novels. I am not in that state of mind currently.